Hello there. Welcome to the Nordic Takedown podcast YouTube channel. My name is Pontus. I'm usually not here much, but I'm a sometime guest and collaborator with the guys. And this time I'm here to talk about Sealed Deck. I played the pre-release for Jump to Lightspeed, set 4 for Star Wars Unlimited, and it went well. I went 4-0, but this is not about me bragging or anything. I think my deck composition, my cards that I got in my boosters, is an interesting case to show like how you can think about constructing your deck for Sealed Deck. And I think there's a lot of things you can learn from what happened and what I got and how this ended up for me. And I think that's all I need to say about that. Let's just get down to the table and I'll show you what I've got. When I play Sealed Deck, I always start by sorting my cards into 15 piles like this. And as you can see, I have one like column for each aspect and aspectless, and then I have a row for the secondary aspect, so to speak, like villainy, heroism, or nothing. And this gives me a good overview of like what I have. Also look at all of these piles individually and put the cards that are actually playable on turn 1. This is where I start. Like put the cards that are playable on turn 1 on top to get an overview. Like this can often give you like an overview of what you can't play these colors, and you just remove those, and then you can think about the other options. That's what I did here. I've placed all my turn 1 options on top basically. And there are some good ones and some not great ones, but maybe playable. For example, Page Tico is a really good card, and Silver Angel is a good card as well. But this Royal Security Fighter, not so much. There's so many 2/3s in space for turn 1 that playing a 2/2 on turn 1 is problematic at best. So like you can play it if you don't have. You probably will have to play some less than good cards, or a lot of times at least. But you want to avoid it if you can. You can get any in command heroism, and here are 3 awkward ones in command neutral, because like the clone pile is a 2/2 for 2. Yes, you could play it as a pilot, but not on turn 1. You could wait on the ground on turn 1. This is okay because there's less ground, so chances are that you might just be alone on the ground, and that could work. But if they have a 2/3, then you're screwed. And Prepare for Takeoff is a card that's also really awkward because you lose so much tempo. If you don't play anything, a unit on turn 1, or deal with your opponent's units, then they will be leading the game. It doesn't matter if you have extra cards in your hand if they are the one that are dictating all of the moves, because they have more stuff on the board. Kijimi Patrollers is fine because it gives you 2 1/1s instead of 1 2/2, so it gives you some more options when you trade later. If you have a 2/3 later and they have killed one of those, then your 2/3 can kill their 2/3 with 1 damage. So it's fine. This is not great, but it's better than for example, Royal Security Fighter, in my opinion. This one is awkward, Masashi Tactical Officer, because, well, you have to have fighters. Like, I did look through my fighters when I sat down. I don't want to do it right now, but there aren't enough fighters that I feel comfortable playing that. This one is really good in Limited or in Sealed Deck, because like a 3/1 for 2. It's just solid, especially since on ground you might be alone on there. But it can also go as a pilot, so it's flexible. Crackshot B-Wing is another one of those awkward ones. It costs 1, which makes it more interesting. If you have other 1-drops, then you could potentially play this and something else. But if your opponent, once again, if your opponent has a 2/3 in space, they just kill it and it did nothing. Or a 1/3, because this one takes damage if you don't have another fighter. And then here we actually have two good ones, I'd say. This is just a 2/3 for 2, and sometimes it might ready because your opponent has more stuff. And then on a 2-1 for 1 on ground that does some indirect damage. That's just pretty decent. Not great, but you know, pretty decent. Well, I should mention that you can't really necessarily tell how big the piles are. They're pretty even. There's only one card in this pile, and then there's like it's pretty even. Like these piles and these piles are about the same size-ish. Same here as well. Anyway, here we have three ones that I feel like they could be playable. The Zygerian Starhopper is a good card, and the other two are a little awkward but could be playable on turn 1. Again, Starhopper is just really good. Heartless Tactics, as I said, if there's a lot of 2-3s. If your opponent plays a 2-3, you can basically just counter it. Basically, you're just like, okay, you play 2-3, well, take it up in your hand. Nothing happened turn 1, and we go to turn 2. So similarly with this, you could play this, and if they keep paying, they're not doing anything else, and that's really good for you. But it's only good on turn 1, and only if you have nothing else, because it's not good. It's just not it can be okay, let's put it like that. Interestingly, in my mind, when I played the tournaments, I was so sure this was a unit, and I don't know why I didn't even consider that it wasn't. Something weird happened in my brain, but it doesn't matter. It's still an okay turn 1 drop, if you go for that color aspects. Here's two like awkward ones. 1-3 for 2 is decent if you have some pilots, but if you don't have any pilots, then it's awkward. And this one is okay. Similarly, because like it actually, since there's not that much on ground in this set, once again I'm gonna keep saying it, this is basically a 2-1 for 1, so like you can be aggressive. This one is I mean it's similar to that one, I guess, because it's a 2-1, but it's an actual 2-1, so it's better in that sense. So it's like a better version of that, but it's in heroism. This one is awkward. If you don't have a pilot, that is really bad. If your opponent has a 2-3, they just trade and you lose. And the same thing with Swarm Vulture Droids. You don't want to play. Generally speaking, if you have a turn 1 space unit that's less than 3 health and less than 3 power, you probably don't want to play it unless it has some effect when it is defeated or when it's played. But these, for example, this one, sure, you could get a pilot. Like if you're playing Wedge and you have a decent amount of pilots, this one might be really good actually. But other than that, not really. This one is really bad turn 1, so I didn't even count that one. And that's what I had to go with. This is like, now I start counting like the combinations, like, okay, how many good combinations do I have? And I quickly realized that I don't have enough of any heroism combination to play heroism. Like, these are not good enough. Like, for blue there's only 2 good ones. For red there's only 1 good one. And that's really it. So there's only, I could play like blue and red, but there's 3 good ones and then like 2 pretty bad ones. So like, my reasoning was that no, I can't play heroism. Like, yeah, this is just not good enough. I can't do that. So I just remove these and put them to the side. Hi, editing Pontus here. I just wanted to say one quick thing about this, because I do realize as I've learned more about the set and about how it actually worked in Limited, since there's so little on ground, I think this would actually have worked as well with Vigilance, Cunning, Heroism, and playing Wedge. Because the 2 1-drop pilots on the ground would actually work to play on the ground, which I didn't notice when I was playing. I played small things on the ground and they survived because players weren't on the ground, more or less. And they are also pilots, which would work with the Wedge, as well as Page Tico is also a pilot. So I think, and that would make Resistance X-Wing pretty decent actually. So looking back at this, I think that might have worked. But you know, this worked really well what I did, so I'm happy I went that way. But I just wanted to say that real quick. And then I also the bad part about this, of course, I can put the rare bases aside. I don't want to play those. Like I have all these heroism leaders that I can't play because I just was unlucky with that stuff, which leaves me with these two leaders, which was all I had left to pick from. Both good options, though. Don't get me wrong, both good options. So next step, like, what do I play? I have to play red or, aggression or vigilance and something else. I could play aggression and vigilance potentially, but I came to the conclusion that I liked I didn't like these enough. There's only one good one and one bad one, while in yellow, like, there's actually one good one and two that are pretty decent. So I had more options there, and I also, for the same reason, green is just not gonna cut it, because like I don't have early game in blue or green, so those are gone, and that means that Asajj is gone because I'm not playing vigilance. So that means I'm playing Boba Fett with these. And the first thing I do is just pile them up in a pile, count how many cards do I have, how many do I need to remove. Like, if I have a good amount to remove, that's a good sign, because then I have options. If these are like 32 cards, then ooh, I count them, 1, 39. So I need to remove 9 cards. I would start by just putting the cards that are like actually good out. Like let's start where we started, and like the cards that I realized that these are the reason I picked these colors, these aspects. Sorry, where are they? There we go. These are the 6 cards that made me like go, yes, okay, I need to play these 2 aspects. Okay, and then I just go through them, like which cards are just bad, so I just remove them. Let's do a quick one. I'm not sure I was right, but I did remove this one pretty quickly. I just didn't think that was good enough. I counted my fighters, so I realized this was not good enough. This one I don't think is a good card at all, so I removed it. Swarming multi-droids are really bad unless you have like 5 or more. I might revisit them if I realize I'm removing too many cards. All of these, all of these are pretty decent. The 4/4 Sentinel, it's not great, but it's not bad. There's a lot of space, as I said. This is pretty good. Sentinel 4/3 in space for resources, pretty good. This is pretty good as well. Dealing 2 damage somewhere is not bad at all. Another Sentinel, that's nice. This is something that people might not expect, and you can actually swing the game. The Mandalorian is interesting. It's double yellow, but the piloting cost is not double yellow. So you can view this card as an upgrade if you're playing single yellow, and that's what I did. So this is, for me, it's purely for the piloting. So 3/1, and you exhaust something, which is still really good. So yeah, that's a really good card, especially with combination with Boba Fett as well, indirect damage. And then if the base damage is ready, so it's really aggressive. Like either you take your damage to units and they die because I can trade, or I have more indirect damage and stuff, or I can do damage to your base. If they don't have units, if I traded already, this is like 5 damage the turn you play it, which is just nuts. This is basically just removal. It's not the best card, but it's not bad. So this I put it to the side, I guess. With this, like, it's still a 3/3 for 3, which isn't great, but as long as you have another space units, you can exhaust something, which is really good. Similarly with her, like, she's also a 3/3 for 3, but you actually can kind of view it as for 2, as long as you have something else to play for the extra resource you're ready. It also actually synergizes with Boba Fett, with Boba Fett, which I didn't realize at first, because this says only that they have to do non-combat damage. And this is non-combat damage, even if you do it to your own units. This is really solid. 3/4 for 4 does 3 indirect damage, and units that are damaged by this are exhausted. So also really aggressive. This one, first time I played this, I thought it was a space unit based on the image, but I told my opponent, I'm playing a shadowed hover tank, and wait, tank? Oh, this is not space units, and I realized. But that made it better, honestly, because being on the ground with the vehicles and then putting pilots on them can be crazy good. This is such a good card in limited. Ambush is just good overall. This one is really bad, so this is one I need to remove. No, I don't want to play that. It has potential to be good sometimes, but it's a lot of the time not going to be useful. This is not worth it in my opinion. This is another one that I considered. It can be okay. And then, yeah, he's really good. 5/4 for 4, or you can pilot and do indirect damage. This one is a little awkward. Yeah, this is solid. 5/4 for 5, I mean. This one is also really good. War Juggernauts. It gets buffed if there's a lot of units that are damaged in play. Since I didn't realize when I was building this deck, because I didn't have any options. That's part of the reason I want to talk about this. In my mind, I didn't have any options, but I think a lot of people looking at this deck or at these cards would build something different. But I happen to have indirect damage stuff, so this one is pretty good. The 3/6 for 4 is also just good stats in this set for limited, because a lot of ships only need 3 to kill. Champs in Duel is really, really good. I think this is probably going to see play in Constructed in Premiere as well, but I'm not sure. Because what you can do is you can purposely not put a resource down on turn 4, staying on 4 resources instead of getting up to 5 resources, because your opponent is almost guaranteed to play their 5th resource. And then you play this and you get your 5th resource as well, and you're back in line with your opponent, and you didn't lose a card from your hand. Super good card, in a real bomb in limited, honestly. This one is a little awkward, but it's still a 4/4 for 4. Saboteur can matter sometimes. This is another solid card, +2/+2, and do some damage. This is really good. 4/2 for 3, do some indirect damage when it's defeated. This one I definitely didn't play, but it could be okay. It's not horrible, but I chose to not play it. This one is really solid. There's a lot of pilots you can defeat. Okay, so now count these again and see how many of these we want to put in. 25, was that right? Oh, we're gonna double check. Yeah. So I need 5 of these cards. Okay, so that means I have to just remove 1 of them. So I remember I just picked this one. I like the ambush on this. This is gonna have a decent amount of the space units, so that's gonna exhaust something pretty often. This is, if you can combo it with something else, it can be 2 cost. It's also similar as Boba Fett. This one is a little weird, but I chose to play with it because it costs 8 for me, but it can do 8 damage each turn, so it can be a good finisher if you get 8 resources. And this is a solid test, a 4/4 for 4. Sure. That's my deck. I chose to not play that one. So let's sort this stuff and see where we're at on the curve. Because now you have to do this at this point to see if you actually need to change something. If your curve is really off, you might have to change something, even though you've gone through this process and yeah, I have good cards, quote unquote. But if your curve is really off, I mean, I'll show you what I mean as I'm sorting this. Sorry, this is like a pile of turn one plays and other cheap cards that aren't on turn 1. And then we have three costs, and like this is the Mandalorian costs 2 to pilot, and I would never play him for 7. I'm gonna using him as pilot, so I place him here as well. And then we have the 3 costs. Let's see if I can display them properly. Let's just put them. Yeah, there we go. And then we have 4. A lot of 4 drops. Dengar is also like one of those that's like a 2 or a 4, but that's something that's really good because he is actually good as either. He's really good as a pilot, but he's also really good as the unit because the 5/4/4 is solid. And then we have 2 5s, 3 6s, and an 8. So this is where I ended up. This curve is pretty good. Let's see, I'll put the base down as well. This curve is pretty good. I have a decent early game. We'll also have something on turn 3 and 4, and that's really important. Being able to keep the pressure. If you can do that in your limited play, in your limited deck construction, that can bring you far. You also want to have some end game, some bombs. I don't have any huge bombs, but these are pretty. All these are pretty decent, or not all of them, but some of these are pretty decent for the end game. And that's the deck I ended up with. I went 4-0, as I said, with this deck. I wasn't sure when I built this. In my mind, like this was the only option I had through the logic I've been going through in this video. But I was like, yeah, I guess I'm playing this. But it turns out this deck was pretty nuts because I have Boba Fett, which his ability, if you don't know, says when you deal non-combat damage, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, deal 1 indirect damage to a player. Indirect damage is a new mechanic, if you don't know, for set 4. That is, you choose a player, and that player chooses to place that much damage that is unpreventable somewhere, wherever they want. They can divide it however they want. You can't place more damage on anything than it needs to be defeated. So you can't place more than 1 on this unit, for example, because it's defeated by 1 damage. And it also is unpreventable. So, for example, if you have shields, just ignore the shield. You keep the shield because the shield isn't triggered. But I have so like non-combat damage. I actually have a decent amount. Another interesting thing, which also I wasn't aware of when I built the deck, because like I didn't have any options. I just had to build this deck this way. These 2 synergize so good. This is insane. I won the game purely because of this combo, so to speak. During my third match. During the third match, I actually changed the deck. I realized that this one, I never got to 8 resources during the entire tournament, and I realized that during that match, and I just put this in instead. And that was definitely the right play, because the game after I sideboarded this in, I started the first turn with these 2, and my opponent had nothing on the ground, and I just out-aggroed him. I did like 10 damage on turn 2 or something, because I played something else that did indirect damage, and he didn't want to damage his units. My point with this entire thing is that sometimes, if you're like, I consider myself a pretty skilled sealed deck player. I won 2 out of the 3 pre-releases I've gone to in Star Wars Unlimited. I went to the pre-release for the first set and the 4th set, and I didn't win the one for the 2nd set. But yeah, it's something that my brain handles well, and I think some people wouldn't realize this is the path, because they focus on something else. If you have this method where you start by looking at your options for early game, because it's so important, this can give you like a path pretty quickly and remove other paths. Maybe if you don't do that, maybe you start looking at, like, I don't know, like Page Tico, and you want to play Vigilance, and you're like, yeah, I have a good leader. I like to play, I don't know, which leader was it? Maybe you want to play Wedge because that's a pilot. You have a bunch of pilots. Okay, I'm gonna play Wedge, and then you're like locked into that in your brain, and you don't realize that, like, yeah, you have some turn 1 plays, but like a 2/2 for 2 isn't a good play, generally speaking, unless you can put a pilot on it. But that's 2 cards, and you risk being 2 for 1. It's like, yeah, pilots are good, but you don't want to put too much into it. So, hi, Pontus here again. I wanted to mention one quick thing about this. This is a little ironic how I'm talking about this specific thing, like getting tunnel vision, because myself, I am in this video having tunnel vision to the one solution I found, because during the tournament I was a little frustrated that I had no option. But you know, if I had looked a little further and realized that those 1 cost cunning units were actually viable on in this meta, so to speak, I could have maybe found a different deck. Now the deck turned out really well, 4-0 as I said, but I still should have considered it, and that's something I missed. So don't be close-minded when you're building your deck. If you have this method, then you can remove some of your bad options, because you have to have early game. So yeah, anyway, that's the point of the video, and I hope you learned something. If you want to see more of this kind of like limited stuff, I would be more than happy to do that. Maybe I can do a video when I get my my boxes from my payment for the PQ judging in Stockholm, and I can do like just pull 6 boosters and show you another version of the same thing, or if people are interested. So that's it for this video. So thanks for joining in, and may the force be with you.